Hello and welcome to the open platform of Armenian Public Television. Today I will discuss the issue of Armenian prisoners of war in Azerbaijan and current situation of Nagorno-Karabakh conflict with Tatev Hayrapetyan, expert on Azerbaijan and member of Armenian parliament from MyStep faction. Ms. Hayrapetyan, thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much.
Azerbaijani Foreign Ministry recently reaffirmed its position that they consider remaining Armenian POWs in Azerbaijan as terrorists and saboteurs. Why did they keep doing so, and especially recently, considering the recently growing international pressure on Azerbaijan?
I think Azerbaijan has several aims while speaking in this language and also showing a very non-constructive approach to the issue. You know that in accordance with famous November 9th statement, trilateral statement, Azerbaijan has to give back all the prisoners of wars and captures. At the same time, Azerbaijan has that duties based on Geneva Conventions, and you see that they as much as it is possible, they want to delay the process. Why they do that? First of all, I think though the active phase of war has come to the end, but at the same time Azerbaijan continues hybrid and psychological war against Armenian state and Armenian people. And one of the important components of that war is the topic of prisoners of war. From time to time they also update the Telegram channels, putting videos of prisoners of war, torturing them. And this really has a big impact on the relatives and on the Armenian society in general. Another topic which they use recently a lot is the topic of Sunik. You know that Aliyev's statement on that.
The so-called corridor, which they...
Yeah, he wants to claim that as a corridor, but Armenian side has severally mentioned that the only corridor which is mentioned in trilateral statement is the Lachin corridor. There is no other corridor to mention. But Aliyev keeps doing that, and I think this is another topic he wants to use to psychologically affect the society. You know that it's after war and we are in kind of a trauma, and these texts really influence a lot. I think Azerbaijan has another aim for future. Maybe it's discussing. Aliyev is discussing in his mind that he will use the topic of the prisoners of war as a bargaining tool.
To trade something.
Yes, maybe. But from another side, we need to have this on mind. But at the same time, it doesn't matter. We should create or organize our steps in accordance with this, vice versa. The more Azerbaijan delays to return our prisoners of war, the more intense our work should become. And until the moment when the last prisoners of war is not back to Armenia, we need to work day and night on that, increasing international pressure on Azerbaijan. And you know that the facts of international pressure on Azerbaijan are a lot, and the recent Human Rights Watch's report had played a huge role.
So coming to the steps taken by the Armenian government, what is the government doing to bring back the POWs?
So I think government indeed is doing a lot. I will go through that. Well, first of all, of course, the MFA office is responsible for putting international pressure, and they are working with all possible, sometimes impossible means. And I want to say thanks to my colleagues in MFA office who are really doing a lot. And as I said, the results are vivid. The calls, condemnations on Azerbaijan from different players of international community. A lot is doing in the perspective of Yegheshek Irakosyan and his office within the framework of European Court of Human Rights. And recently, European Court of Human Rights has applied and asked and put has applied to Committee of Ministers, saying that Azerbaijan is not keeping the limits and is not providing the necessary information, which of course is a problem. So has notified the Committee of Ministers, and I think this is also important. Another channel belongs to Ombudsman Office, and Arman Tatoyan, again, I want to thank him and his office for what they are doing, are really working a lot to raise this issue in international different arenas. And of course, also parliamentary diplomacy is playing a huge role. One very recent example was our initiative by all female members of the parliaments, no matter what faction they belong to. We applied to Matvienko, to
the Russian Federal Council's
yes, head, and we asked her to play a role to help us to return prisoners of war, especially female prisoners of war. And after lots of efforts, thankfully, Muradyan
played its
yes,
role,
it played its role, yeah, and she also talked to her Azerbaijani colleague Jafarova, and they returned Muradyan. Unfortunately, there is no news about another female prisoners of war, which we put in the letter, but hopefully it will come, though Azerbaijan rejects the existence of her. But I want to say that it's a diversified work, and all players need to do their part of the job. So it really plays a role. Individually, none of us can do anything, but all together, if we join our efforts, we really can get.
And also linking the efforts together.
Exactly,
to
of
have
course.
the results.
Yes, exactly. Communicating with each other and working together. We can reach the goal we want, I'm sure.
You mentioned about the Human Rights Watch report. There are many international institutions, organizations, agencies, U.S. senators, representatives joined together to call President Biden to urge Azerbaijan to return the prisoners of war. However, Azerbaijan still don't do that. What do you think as an expert on Azerbaijan? What can kind of force or make them do that?
I think different factors. First of all, recently also the head of MFA office, Mr. Hayrapetyan, has mentioned that Armenia needs a strong co-chairmanship, and all three co-chairs and the states, US, France and Russia, should intensively work on the process. And I think they also have a lot to do with the problem of prisoners of war. After Human Rights Watch report, really, it played a huge role, and we have seen many feedbacks coming from European Parliament, from US, as you mentioned, and let's think the following, that Aliyev will do whatever is possible not to return or to keep prisoners of war as much as it is possible. But at the same time, as I mentioned before, we should maximize our efforts on that direction, so there is no other chance for him to let these people return back. Then so keeping these people will become a real problem for him day after day. It is already a problem, and we should work as much as possible on that direction. I think this is the only way I see it. And no matter what they say, no matter how they threaten us, sometimes saying that these people will be put in prison, they cannot be back, etc. No matter what they say, we need to work day and night on that, not giving up on any single Armenian prisoners of war who is being kept in Baku.
Let's hope for the good luck in this and
yes.
For the return.
And also just one small mentioning, since European Court of Human Rights is using the tool of interim measures, these people more or less have a protection. We had one case when after issuing an interim measure, the Armenian prisoners of war was killed, but at the same time somehow it is guaranteeing their safety, especially after they notify the Committee of Ministers of Council of Europe on that topic.
Azerbaijan continues its policy of history falsification. So what do you think what can be done for preventing Aliyev doing so? Recently he openly ordered to erase the Armenian scripts on the church in occupied Hadrut. And also yesterday BBC published a video story about a church demolished in what is called Jebrail but Mekhakavan.
This is not new. This is not the first time and definitely not the last time. We all perfectly remember what happened with Armenian heritage in Nakhichevan, in Juau. It happened, the whole international community witnessed that. What is the aim of Azerbaijan, or in generally speaking Turkish policy of that? Is to demolish, to erase Armenian trace from the region. As you said, to falsify the history. And they are not only falsifying the history of Armenian nation and Armenian people, but also the same they are doing with Iranian people, with other people living in the region. This is their policy, this is how they create everything. And I think by these steps also, it has a, for me personally as well, it plays a huge role when I see the idea of demolishing Armenian cultural heritage. What can we do? We have already taken measures. Recently, also the Deputy Minister of MFA office had a conversation with the representative of US General Secretary of UNESCO, if I'm not mistaken, and talked about the problem and asked them to pay attention on that. And it's not so, it doesn't also only apply to the churches or cemeteries. Recently we saw that they demolished the statue of a hero of Soviet Union, Nelson Stepanyan, only for one thing: he was an Armenian. Yeah. And you know what in post-Soviet era, what kind of a role this plays and what kind of impact it had. Even the Russia representative Maria Zakharova has mentioned this and unacceptability of this in her statement. So they are doing everything possible to delay it, to erase Armenian trace, and according to their policy there should be nothing reminding of Armenians and Armenian heritage on the territories. This is how they act, and this is how they have been doing within the recent 100 years.
Baku tries to present Armenian cultural heritage as Albanian, or as we call Caucasian Albanian. How far the Armenian and Caucasian Albanian culture and ethnicity are similar, and can Azerbaijan really claim that Caucasian Albanians are their predecessors?
I think this is also part of falsification of the history. Generally speaking, during Soviet times there have been developed three theories of Azerbaijani origin. One of them was the theory of Caucasian Albanian, that they are the proceeders of Caucasian Albanian. There are people, ethnic minorities in Azerbaijan, living now in Azerbaijan, who somehow, according to some researchers, belong to, have a heritage of coming from Caucasian Albanian time. One of the examples are Udi people, Tsakhur people, Avar people, but there are ethnic minorities registered in Azerbaijan. Of course, they have gone under the policy of assimilation during Soviet times, and many of them have been mentioned as Azerbaijanis. But it doesn't mean that they became really Azerbaijanis. Yeah. And one example of what you mentioned is the Armenian church in Karvajar. Nadivang, but they said it belongs to Udi, etc. Such kind of fairy tales have been created. I think this is also the part of the falsification policy we have talked to. If it doesn't belong to Armenians, it belongs to Caucasian Albania. There are no links. There are maybe some similarities. There have been common history, etc. I'm not so much expert in that of the times of Caucasian Albania, but as much as I have researched, they can't be compared, and then they can't be put on similar basket. No, nothing like that. Though Udis belong to Apostolic Church, but they are not Armenians, I think, or maybe some common historical, I don't know, background, I don't know, which I'm not aware of, but making everything what is Christian Armenian, putting it as a Caucasian Albanian, is another political direction which Azerbaijan is using.
Ms. Hayrapetyan, thank you very much for your time and for joining us.
Thank you for your invitation.
This is Open Platform of Armenian Public Television, and I was talking to Ms. Tatev Hayrapetyan, who is an expert on Azerbaijan and a member of parliament from My Step faction, and we were discussing the policy of falsification by Azerbaijan and the prisoners of war, Armenian prisoners of war being held in Azerbaijan. Thank you for watching us.